The Ultimate Marvel Universe was a popular mainstay for comic book fans from the moment the first issue of Ultimate Spider-Man hit shelves back in October of 2000. This new and exciting take on the classic Marvel Comics universe was beloved by many upon its early years of release, with the likes of Ultimate Spider-Man regularly topping Marvel's bestsellers alongside the likes of The Ultimates, Ultimate X-Men and Ultimate Fantastic Four. However, towards the end of the decade, as popularity and hype towards this series began to wane, the writers behind the Ultimate Universe decided it was time to do a major event to shake up the status quo, altering the landscape of the universe in a way never really attempted in the regular continuity. The result of this was Ultimatum, a 2009 miniseries written by Jeph Loeb that saw unprecedented deaths to every corner of the Marvel Universe, killing over 20 established heroes and villains within 5 issues. Now, today, Ultimatum is widely regarded as one of the biggest misfires in the modern history of Marvel Comics, an event devised to surprise readers and boost sales with these shocking deaths that, in the end, only served to kill the universe that it attempted to save. So, in this video, I want to dive into the factors that led up to Ultimatum ever taking place, the bold ideas at the heart of this story, and how, in execution, it only served to end the Golden Age and ultimately seal the fate of the Ultimate Marvel Universe. The Ultimate Marvel Universe was a huge success when it was first created. Its first series, Brian Michael Bendis and Mark Bagley's Ultimate Spider-Man, was a monumental hit for the company that allowed them to go all in on this new and modern take on the classic universe. Following its initial success, we saw the rollout of a whole host of other Ultimate series, with maybe the biggest being The Ultimates, Mark Millar and Brian Hitch's widescreen cinematic retelling of The Avengers, bringing Earth's mightiest heroes firmly into the 21st century and into a modern war on terror context. The first few years of the Ultimate Universe was arguably nothing but a huge success for Marvel. However, by the mid to late 2000s, a few factors led to their fortunes beginning to change. Namely, in 2004, Bill Jemas, formerly Vice President of Marvel and one of the key names behind the universe, was fired from the company, whilst both Millar and Hitch wrapped up their second volume of The Ultimates between 2005 and 2007, before exiting the project and not working on the third volume. It was also around this time that Marvel attempted to flesh out their Ultimate series further, with Orson Scott Card being tasked with writing an Ultimate Iron Man series. However, this graphic novel failed to hit the heights of its predecessors, so much so that it was eventually retconned out of the Ultimate continuity entirely. So, as a result of these issues, Marvel's editorial felt that a big shake-up was needed to revitalise interest in the Ultimate line, entrusting Jeph Loeb, who had recently taken over from Millar as the writer of Ultimates 3, to begin sowing the seeds for the Ultimate Universe's first major event. Ultimates 3 was first released in December 2007, and both aimed to act as a final instalment in Millar and Hitch's existing Ultimate story, and also a lead-in to the much larger event in its aftermath. Now, without delving too much into the story of Ultimates 3 itself, because that's enough for its own video, it's fair to say that it was more noticeably divisive than the previous 2 volumes, with many criticising Loeb's over-reliance on shock value and his excessive use of violence and deaths throughout the story. Quality aside though, it is worth noting that Loeb did attempt to plant the seeds for his event story throughout Ultimates 3. You see, in the opening issue, the Scarlet Witch, the daughter of Magneto and a member of the Ultimates, is killed by Ultron, with Magneto abducting his daughter's body and taking it to the Savage Land, where he's confronted by the hero Ensemble. This tension is only compounded at the end of the story, when Quicksilver is also killed following a fight between the Ultimates and the android duplicates created by Yellowjacket. With both of his children now dead, Magneto can take no more. The comic ends with him declaring war on humanity and promising, "For what this world has done, for killing my children, they will all pay the ultimate price," setting into motion Magneto's attack on the world and the events that would later become known as Ultimatum. As Jeph Loeb himself explained, the idea behind Ultimatum was to conclude what I would like to say is the first chapter of the Ultimate Universe. Essentially, this was Marvel's attempt to somewhat wipe the slate clean and give the writers and artists a platform to take new and exciting risks within the Ultimate continuity. This was a bold idea for sure, but in order for Ultimatum to succeed, fans would have to endure losing a whole host of well-known characters. But if they did, it would set the stage for a generation of new stories and characters to emerge in their place. Now, that is a very positive way of looking at the editorial reasoning behind Ultimatum. David Finch, the book's artist, puts it more bluntly, recalling the mandate given to him by Marvel Editorial being as straightforward as kill everyone in the Ultimate Universe. Ultimatum ran for 5 issues, beginning in January 2009 and wrapping up that September. The comic opens to regular life in the Ultimate Universe. We see the Fantastic Four working in the Baxter Building, the Ultimates conversing in Tony Stark's mansion, and Peter Parker riding a train through Manhattan. Everything seems normal, until a flash of lightning strikes the sky and a tsunami hits Manhattan. New York begins to flood, Bruce Banner drowns in the streets before transforming into the Hulk, and Hank Pym leaves Tony's mansion in search of his missing wife Janet. The Ultimate's mansion is flooded, with Tony rescuing Captain America while the rest of the team's whereabouts are unknown. Meanwhile, Charles Xavier, sensing what's going on, mentally connects with the various Marvel heroes, alerting them that millions of people have already died in these floods, and that the person responsible is Magneto, who we see hiding in his floating citadel in possession of Thor's hammer Mjolnir. From here on out, the story continues and we see the death toll begin to grow, namely from the Off, Beast, Nightcrawler and Dazzler are all confirmed dead, as Spider-Man and Hulk work together to rescue people, whilst Hank Pym searches the streets for his missing wife. Hank does find Jan eventually, only discovering that the Blob is actually eating her corpse, with Hank growing to his giant man size, biting off the Blob's head in revenge. Meanwhile, Thor, upon discovering the dead body of his partner Valkyrie, enters Valhalla and attempts to reclaim her soul from Hela, aided in his fight by a now seemingly deceased Captain America, with Thor eventually sacrificing himself to save both Cap and Valkyrie. As this is all going on though, Magneto confronts Xavier at the school, explaining how the deaths of his children made him realise that the only solution was to exterminate the human race. As Charles attempts to argue back, Magneto retaliates by snapping his former friend's neck, killing him. As Magneto flees back to his citadel, he's confronted by both the Ultimates and the X-Men. The villain attempts to fight off the group, killing Wolverine before having his arm cut off by Valkyrie, before Nick Fury, Reed Richards and Doctor Doom arrive to corner the villain, with Fury showing Magneto the truth about the origins of the mutant gene, with it being artificially created by the Weapon X program in an attempt to create a new super soldier, and not the divine calling or the next step of evolution that Magneto had long thought it was. Shaken by this revelation, Magneto immediately reverses the damage he had done to the Earth's magnetic poles and begs for mercy. Cyclops steps up and executes Magneto using his optic blasts. Ultimatum concludes with Cyclops giving a speech in front of the White House, announcing that the government is voting on a bill that will require all mutants to turn themselves into the state. However, as he continues, Cyclops is shot and killed by an unknown sniper, who is later revealed to be Quicksilver, the once thought dead son of Magneto, who takes his father's helmet and promises to carry on his legacy. Whether it was for better or for worse, it's clear that Ultimatum had serious ramifications on the Ultimate Comics universe. Not only did the story see a number of well-known Marvel heroes die, but the long-term impacts of this were felt just as much as the immediate, as teams like the X-Men and the Fantastic Four no longer existed in this post-Ultimatum world, or at least not in the way that they did prior. In only 5 issues, Jeph Loeb had changed the Marvel landscape in a way arguably no one had ever done before him since Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. And the universe after Ultimatum was put in a position unlike anything the main continuity had ever gone through. But how was this received? Now, the critical and commercial response to Ultimatum is quite telling, as the series initially sold well, with the first issue topping the best-selling charts of that month. But by the time the miniseries wrapped, Ultimatum found itself having lost over 27,000 readers. Fans clearly weren't impressed with what had happened throughout this story, and critics, unfortunately, seem to share this sentiment. Jesse Shadeen for IGN went as far as to call Ultimatum one of the worst comics I have ever read, and described it as the ultimate nightmare. The legacy of Ultimatum, though, is a particularly interesting thing. On one hand, this story is essentially what saw the end of the golden age of the Ultimate Universe, that saw readers finally walk away from this series and never return. You could make the argument that Ultimatum is essentially what led to the universe's ultimate death a number of years later. However, while I think there's certainly weight to this argument, I also think it's important to note that despite all of its problems, Ultimatum didn't single-handedly kill off the Ultimate Universe, and while interest in the series may never have reached the levels they were prior to this event, a number of exciting and popular stories still took place in the post-Ultimatum era. Namely, writers such as Jonathan Hickman, Brian Michael Bendis and Nick Spencer used the fallout of Ultimatum to both create brand new characters, with the likes of Miles Morales and Jimmy Hudson taking centre stage in Ultimate Spider-Man and Ultimate X-Men, and also progressing the stories of existing characters in unexpected ways, namely Kitty Pryde reforming and taking charge of the new X-Men, and Reed Richards devolving into the supervillain The Maker. So, while I think that Ultimatum is a deeply misguided, flawed, and ill-considered story created solely out of a need for shock value and short-term success, I think its place within the history of the Ultimate Marvel Universe is more nuanced than we might think. I don't think this comic itself killed off the universe, but the editorial reasoning and thought process behind it may have played a big part in the series' inevitable demise. When it first started, the Ultimate Universe was an incredibly exciting project, one that fans were excited to watch unfold, but as the years progressed, the shine and the intrigue did begin to wear off, even before Ultimatum was even conceived. Now, while Ultimatum wasn't the catalyst for the Ultimate Universe's collapse, it instead represents the failure to understand the problems that the universe had developed in the previous years, and instead chose to double down on their commitment to capturing the immediate eye of readers without a clear long-term vision on how to keep them intrigued. And much like the flood that swept through New York within the comic itself, Ultimatum essentially served as Marvel's sink or swim moment for the universe, forcing this once promising alternative to the main continuity to either adapt or perish. And regardless of the outcome, I think it was clear that the Ultimate Universe after Ultimatum was never going to be the same again. Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please make sure to leave a like on it and leave a comment down below as well. Let me know your thoughts on Ultimatum. Have you read the comic? And do you think it's fair to call it the event that essentially killed the Ultimate Universe? Or do you think there are larger circumstances at play? Let me know down below. I can't wait to hear what you have to say as always. Now, if you're new to Owen Likes Comics, please consider hitting the subscribe button and the notify bell next to it so you never miss another video that we post. And if you want some more videos, there should be some on screen right now that I hope you might also enjoy. If you want some more of me, you can follow me on Twitter just at Owen Likes Comics, and if you want to help me support the channel, there are links to both Patreon and to Ko-fi down in the description. But that's all for me. I will see you all next time. So until then, take care and keep reading.